Welcome to another episode on this segment on Daybreak Africa. I am Angela Daku, and today we'll be discussing about the 2023 presidential polls in reflection of the 2014 Confab. Today to discuss this with me is a legal practitioner in person of Barrister Kunle Adetoube.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm once again privileged to be here, and I thank you for coming around.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, my first question to you, sir, is about the 2014 Confab. It was all about a new nation, a new constitution from the people, although the paradox behind it is that it failed. So what are the legal standpoints you think was the reason for this failure?
Now, let us take a holistic view of the purpose of the Confab of 2014. The vision, the mission, and the objective was to set out a pace within which Nigerians will come together to deliberate on the issues affecting Nigeria in all its entirety. Permit me to say that there were about 600 Nigerians at the Confab, headed by retired Chief Justice of Nigeria, Lebo Kutugi. And then at the end of the Confab, about 600 resolutions were reached. Now, these are people of diverse integrity from different economic background, either political, professional, expatriates, that came together with the purpose of finding out a solution to the security problem facing the country, the political problem, the socio-economic problem. But at the time they completed their assignment, and then the resolution was submitted to the federal government, it now becomes an issue of implementation. During which time some people were saying, because it was approaching an election year, and then some people were of the view that the purpose was because of the election. Not minding the fact that the Confab was for the purpose of redeeming the image of Nigeria, and taking for granted that there was not really what we would call a legal background for that particular Confab to have a solid footing, that it can be regarded as a working document that can operate having the background of legal status. So it was just people that came together, and there was not a particular framework legally, so to say, that in the events where the resolutions were made and accepted and adopted, that it becomes an instrument of law. There was no such thing. So at that point in time, it's just like a dog who has teeth but cannot bite. So the resolutions were there embedded in that document. And then coming out now to say we want to look at the content and implement it, it becomes something difficult because there was no legal basis. There was no trust in law that can say, okay, you can't be compelled now to bring out from that document and put into practice and usage the recommendations of the resolutions reached at the end of the conference. So it was just like other conferences that has been held in the past in this country. So it was not an exception on the fact that it was not given a legal footing within which anybody can call, and then it becomes an issue that must be obeyed. That this, had there been a resolution either of the Senate or of the Parliament comprising the House of the Senate and House of Reps that gives it an enforcement of law, and it was passed and vetoed by the president, then it becomes a legal instrument. But there was nothing like that. All they did was for them to come together from different backgrounds and then discuss, highlight issues, make suggestions, and the think tank of what we want, the vision, the mission, and the objectives of what a new Nigeria should look like.
Okay. Well, sir, would this have stopped the government from adopting some of the opinions that were rendered?
You see, the working of government goes through stages. Now, for it to be an instrument that the government will have to use, will have to pass through legal processes that will lead to the documentations of the resolutions In which case, take the constitution for instance, although not workable, but it's still the constitution that we're using at the moment. So it has to go through the force of law. The law as it stands as regards the constitution is that whatever is inconsistent with that constitution become null and void. So the constitution is a working instrument that every set of governments, including individuals, will have to obey and follow. So given the status of the conference resolution, it has not gone through the full implementation of documentation of law. So it is possible that that's why probably the present government is not even looking at the document, because it does not have the what we call the fundamentalism of law.
Well, over 30 years of our existence as a democratic nation, there has been no constitution bettered from the people. So we're in 2022 already, and everybody's anticipating the general election. So how viable do you think this election is going to be?
Now, if we have to look at the history of constitution making in the country, even given at the time of the colonial masters and up to the time we got independence from the Clifford Constitution to what I would call Abdulsalami Abubakar Constitution of 1999, you will find that at a particular point in time, some were workable, some were not. But this particular one of 1999, do we say is a constitution that we, the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, agree to have? If you look at the citations of the Constitution, it evolves from the 1999 Constitution. It was just some little supplementary ideas here and there and amendments that were made. So the Constitution was a decree of the then federal government led by the then head of state, Abdulsalam Abubakar. It was not a constitution that was made through the wills, the aspirations, contributions of the ethnic tribes of Nigeria. It was one that was imposed by the military. So, but you find it very funny that when you read from the Constitution, it says, we the people. Who are we the people? When you talk about we the people, probably we have agreed, we have nominated people from each of the constituents of what makes up the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Take North and South, for instance, and then the 6 geopolitical zones. People will come together and agree, this will be our representatives. This will be our representative. So everybody will go there, having at the back of their mind where they are coming from, either as an ethnic tribe, either of the larger tribe or of the smaller tribe. Then we come with foray of what we have and we want to believe will exist as the working instrument that will help us to develop the nation called Nigeria. So it was an idea that was single-handedly imposed through a decree before it was named as a constitution. So it was not a law that was willingly made by the people, taking into consideration the security nature of the country, taking into consideration what we call the political history of the country, taking into consideration the socio-economic indices of the country. So some people just came because, okay, they said we want democracy. And then how will the democracy thrive? There has to be a constitution. And the constitution, so to say, which is the working instrument, was not made by the people. You will read or see from what is going on at the National Assembly that there are amendments going on relating to the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria of 1999. Some people will say in all its totality that it is not a workable instrument because it is not an idea that emanates from the people of Nigeria. So such a document will be very difficult to work with and then to look at what the position of Nigeria is at the moment. So it is a document that is not taking care of our needs, of our aspirations, of our development, and of every other thing that can lead to good governance.
Well, how do we go about constructing another constitution for the country if anything like that can be done?
Now, if you look at the political calculation of the country at the moment, you find that there are some people who are talking about referendum. You find that there are some people who are talking about restructuring. You find that some people who are talking about what is called the real parliamentary system of government. Some are even saying that both presidential and parliamentary should be put together because of the nature of our country. So now, when you look at these situations, is it that the issue of restructuring that some do talked about, I recollect vividly in the 2019 during the campaign, it was one of the agenda of the present government that they will look at the issue of restructuring of this country. But as it stands now, it appears to have been abandoned. Now, when you look at the country, some are speaking as Yoruba nation, some are speaking as Hausa nation, some are speaking as Igbo nation, forgetting the fact that there are still some other minor ethnic tribes in the country. So for us to have a working instrument that we can validly call and hoped upon that this is the constitution of the people of Nigeria, all of these, either big or small ethnic tribes, must come together, and the people should be adequately represented so that from each of the regions or ethnic background, we can have an idea that we can sew together to become one, to say, this is what we want for the country called Nigeria. Without that, we will still continue to face the present problem we are facing in the country.
So how will you justify the 2023 election? Now,
the 2023 election as it is, you now find that there are activities in the air. People are moving up and down. But as it still stands, it is still the working instrument we have. Vis-a-vis now the Electoral Act. It is the Electoral Act that would determine what type of election we will have for the year 2023. The year 2023 is around the corner, like we are saying now. But obviously, there must be a guiding instrument that will dictate and direct how the election will go. In the last few weeks, we have had situations where the issue of amendments in the Electoral Act, more particularly when the act that was passed by the House, the National House, was talking about direct primaries. Of course, which the president has to say that, look, no, if we say we have to go through the direct primaries, there are dangers and difficulties it will encounter. You have to go through either direct or indirect or some other ways through which there will be a level playing ground. And I think we are reading from the pages of newspaper that the House appears to be amenable to that correction now. So that if we have to do it, it has to be now, so that we can hand over to the INEC chairman. Then you have a view, then they will have a mindset, they will have a certain goal of how to go about the election. Otherwise, we have not prepared and we have not making any effort.
Well, in a bit of attention to the electoral bill of which you just spoke about, do you consider it priority for a successful election?
It is, of course. Absolutely. Okay. Because without it, there won't be focus. It will be rudderless. Except there is a working instrument that guides as to how parties will nominate their candidate or will elect their candidate to be presented for election. So it has to be a guideline. Then you look at the system too. Through the Amendment Act, we are looking at the processes where the issue of electronic items become an issue now. Whether it is INEC or which other party or which other body will have the directive on how to use the electronic instruments in the course of the election. So if by the amended act now, the power has been given to the commission, and which will be able, so we will now have what it is at every sector of the election, either be it at the local, be it at the state, or be it at the national. So they have what will guide them, within which they can work within law, available law, to which they can conduct the election. So it is a must, it is a necessity, and it's also necessary that the Electoral Act should be the guiding principle, should be the focus point, should be the instrument to highlight how the election will be conducted. Otherwise, it will be a mess.
Just like you said earlier, sir, there have been an amendment in the electoral bill where they are trying to adopt the direct, indirect process of the election. So how do you think this will play out?
Well, to my own mind, and from the view we have gathered from other people, and I think it's a democracy. So in a democracy, ideas are allowed to count, principles are allowed to count, policies are allowed to count. So it will become a totalitarian thing in no ramification if all parties are enjoined by the Electoral Act to be involved or to partake in what I call direct election or direct mode of electing their candidate to be presented for election. That will not give room to a divergent view. It will also not give room to absolute democracy, because people, you have an idea, I have an idea. So if we are to share our idea, we have to look at the options available rather than being totalitarian in all sector of it. So the idea that it has to be through direct primary, to me, is totalitarian, and that also will cause problem among the parties, especially when it comes to electing who is to lead the party in any election. So I think it is right and justifiable to say there has to be options, and the options will be this, the options will be that. So people will look at the available option. Take Ekiti election. There are processes in which they were electing their leader between the APC and the PDP recently. We have seen it. We have found out that the method adopted by PDP is different from the method adopted by the APC. So it gives room for people to make a choice as to what they want, or the party leaders to make a choice as to how they want to elect their own leaders or their own candidates who will represent them at any of the elections.
Sorry for taking you back, sir, but you made mention of the president saying there will be a problem if the direct form of election was being carried out. So can you elaborate?
Now, when you look at it, like I earlier said, it will become a totalitarian of a thing. Then, using that mode of direct election, it will also be very expensive for the parties to maintain. Then also, some people will be left out. So the question of people airing their view will be outside of it. It will cause constraint, to major constraint, and it can be hijacked by the money bags. So, but the moment that we know we have options, and then we sit down to look at it, that this is option A, this is option B, this is option C. So the issue of somebody now coming to say, except when it was A alone, then that will be the method. But now that we have A, B, C, D, we will all sit down together and decide which to use, so that the issue of imposition will not arise.
In establishing a pure democratic process, what legal, political, and economic means would you suggest?
Now, in the first instance, when we look at it democratically, we have to have a working instrument. And the working instrument legally, we have to have a working constitution that would carry every Nigerian along in the operation of system. Then we also have to look at what we call the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act is the guideline. The Electoral Act will dictate the process. The Electoral Act will state what the parties are to do. Without these two instruments, one, our political graduation would collapse totally, because it is from the Constitution that we decide to say there can be a president, there should be a governor, there should be this minister, there should be attorney general. So it is the basis of what is contained in the Constitution that we now use as a way of electing our leaders. And then through that means, we now have the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act will guide the conduct of the election. So when you look at these two instruments, they are very vital to the process of making a governable election in any country. Then you look at the socio-economic aspect of it. The socio-economic aspect of it will be to the fact that we have also to work through these working instruments. It dictates a lot of things. It controls our economy in such a way that, one, from the mode of making law, we look at the functions of every other department that will require to make law for the use either of economic advantage or for political graduation of the country. So in all of this, we need a working instrument that will guide as a pointer, so that we can have a compass within which we can look at the direction in which these things are to go. Also look at the issue of security. If we don't have this working instrument, now we have this issue of kidnappings here and there, abduction of people, higher killings here and there. But these offenses also have laws that says if you do this, this will be the end result. If you do this, this will be the justification for it. So we need law in every sector of whatever we do in life to guide and control our ideas and activities.
Well, what are the qualities that you would advise people to look out for, especially in this aspect of the presidential election, in order to choose a leader?
Yes. What may be food for me may not be food for you. Now, the Constitution has made it so clear that the grants are there for people to join any party of their choice without anybody imposing anybody on any association. So if I choose to say I want to be an AC, a Accord Party member, so be it. If I say I want to be APC, so be it. Or if I say I choose to be a member of PDP, so be it. But that these associations, they all have their followers and they have their members. It is from these their followers and members that people will come and say, I want to become this by their own aspiration. I want to contest either as a councillor, I want to contest either as a chairman of a local government, I want to contest either for the post of the governor of a state or the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So that is why I said that all these are tailored in the document of the Electoral Act to say you can choose from this, you can choose from this. You can go this way, you can go that way. But then, when we look at the past and look at where at the present, we have to be very, very careful. And we should also be circumspect in who we are going to push forward as somebody who will lead this country. We have gotten to a stage where we have to be very frank in all we do. Now, we look at the other either of the Western world or of another parts of the countries of the world where you have people who are younger now taking over the reign of leadership from the older generation. But in our own case, it is just what I call a circulation of the old order fusing into the present order. The young ones do not have what it takes because they don't have the money to say, okay, we want to contest or vie for this. But I think this is the time for the youths of this country to take their destiny into their own hands. Otherwise, the older generation will continue to mass themselves on the younger generation. And your generation are still, you own the population at the moment. And then every other thing that can make it work still is within you. Name it, the social media and all other things. You control it. But then it is now for people to stand up, for people to wake up from their slumber, from people to come back together and say, this is what we want. We need an energetic leader. We need a leader who has focus. We need a leader with a vision. We need a leader who can look into tomorrow. We need a leader who is accessible. We don't want leaders that will be in today and out tomorrow, either for one reasons of health challenges here and there. Of course, it can happen to anybody. But then that's why I said I use the word energetic leader. We should also dissuade ourselves from this money bag election of a thing. I want to say that the youth, of course, may not have the financial means of saying they want to run through the election, but they can run it with idea. The ideology of what it is to run a country is with them as youths of Nigeria. That also does not say that because we are talking about youth, we have to forget about our leaders and elders. We just have, there should be a synergy between the two so that the younger ones can learn from the older ones to prop up Nigeria to a better destination. So we need people who are charismatic, people that is acceptable, people that can show leadership at all times. That is what we need now. And mark you, the economy of Nigeria is grounded completely. We have become a borrowed nation. Some are some are making the, what I will call now, what do I call it now? A kind of irritating statement that your generation, my generation, their generation will continue to pay debts to Russia, even in the next 100 years. But we need somebody who will take us out of the woods, that will show extreme leadership, that will focus on the economy, security, and other aspects of Nigeria that will put Nigeria in the rightful place where we belong. So we need an energetic leader.
Thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity, and thank you for appearing on the program. It has been a pleasure. Yes, sir. So we have come to the end of today's episode. Till we meet again, I am Angela Daku. Do have a nice time.